even sometimes Stoneforge Mystic plus Daze is going to be enough. There's only so much targeted burn in the burn deck that can go to creatures. So
I think Charlie's tired.
It is probably past his bedtime.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Pretty late.
Kind of past my bedtime. So.
Old is gold, as they say. Here's a Delver of Secrets. Mitchell going to take a draw. I believe they did both keep 7. Here is a mountain. That's a Goblin Guide. In we go. Jordan, Polluted Delta add to the grip. Jordan will go down to 18. We'll see if his Delver will flip or if he has any interest in brainstorming to ensure that it flips. Take a look. It's a hit. Gitaxian Probe.
This is one of the few matchups in Legacy where I would remove Gitaxian Probe post-board.
You don't want to look at all the burn spells that are going to kill you?
There's not a lot of information to be gained in most games, and 2 life is a real cost.
Yes. Yes, it is. Sacrifice Polluted Delta, Will Jordan. Going to go down to 17. This is a Tundra. That's a Stoneforge. We already know that. And you have to imagine it's going to be Batterskull or Jite. Which one would you search for?
I think that I like getting the Jite here because he has an Insectile Aberration, he has insurance in case something happens to his Stoneforge Mystic.
Okay.
Jite on a creature is good enough to win the game too, and this forces Charlie to have 2 pieces of removal, not just 1. Doesn't have to be a Batterskull hit. 1 hit from a Jite is good enough.
Oh, there's Daze on top. 2 damage is going to come across here. Jordan's going to go down to 15. So now Mitchell has to be concerned about Daze moving forward. That's a fetch land. Mitchell will go down to 16.
This really needs to be a Searing Blaze here.
Pretty important.
Charlie with 3 in his main deck.
Pretty important that it resolves, too. And I see one in his hand.
And at this stage, Charlie doesn't have the luxury of playing around Daze. He just has to be willing to concede the game to that card.
Well, he's going to go after the Delver. Doesn't think maybe Jordan has Batterskull. How do you feel about that?
Well, he has to kill both creatures anyway. It is risky. I understand what he's doing here, in that if Dan doesn't have another creature, it at least forces an attack with its own force mystic. You get to block. Life goes on a little bit, but it is really risky if Dan has Batterskull.
Yep. Mitchell does have Sulfuric Vortex in the hand.
Ooh, maybe he's now that he knows about the Daze.
Gets much worse.
Yeah.
One thing here is I imagine that Dan searched for a Jite because, you know, if my Stoneforge Mystic dies, that's fine. I have something I can do. But so if he doesn't have Batterskull, this play actually works out beautifully, I think, for Mitchell.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense.
Gitaxian Probe. We're going to see a Lava Spike, a Fire Blast ×2, the Vortex, and another copy of Goblin Guide.
A lot of gas in that hand.
Yeah.
Charlie just looking for lands at this point.
Yeah, it's actually a situation where lands and spells are they're both good.
Well, some of the spells aren't very good, but by and large, you're right. I'm sure Charlie would take Running Mountains from this spot.
Yeah. There's Wasteland. Pass the turn back.
The problem is that Charlie's working with some uncertainty here. Given the fact that he had an Insectile Aberration, it's reasonable for Dan to have gotten Umazawa's Jite as insurance. But you can't rule out the possibility that he just naturally drew the Batterskull.
Yep.
This is the risk that Charlie took with his play last turn.
Well, here we come. We're going to find out right now. Force of Will will be what he's looking at. Activate. Yep, there it is.
Tough guy.
Yep. Now I'm trying to, and now he's considering maybe fire blasting this, which is a real risk as well.
Well, the risk is he'll have no more lands against an opponent who has Daze in hand.
Well, I mean, he could add 1 and then.
No, I'm just saying going forward.
Yeah, of course.
Tough guy Dan Jordan over here.
Yep.
Might as well hold him upside down by his ankles, shake all the chains out of his pockets while you're doing this.
You know Charlie beat him already, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, fire blasting here is so tough. It is so tough.
Well, he can't. I don't think he can win any other way.
Yep.
I've been here before. Your odds of winning go from 0% to under 1%, but you gotta try.
I'm not sure if he floated a mana or not. That's the bigger question. Yeah, and he's just going to see the game knowing that, okay, I'm beat. I can't win. So Dan Jordan is going to win game number 1 over Charlie Mitchell. That batter skull was a giant pain, and Blue Red Delver is up a game over a burn. That's actually kind of the draw that you mentioned too. You know, you got a Stoneforge, you've got counter magic like a Daze and a Force of Will, and it's too much to overcome, especially when you're on the draw. If you're on the play, maybe.
Yeah, Charlie has a reasonable shot at winning that game on the play. You know, turn 1 Goblin Guide, turn 2 Searing Blaze your play. Even at that point, Stoneforge Mystic may just be too slow. Yeah. But on the draw, just not happening.
Also took the real risk of killing Delver instead of Stoneforge Mystic. Again, I believe that play is actually quite good if Dan didn't naturally draw Batter Skull.
That's the thing about it. There's 2 things that can happen in that game that warrants Dan getting Umezawa's Jitte. One is, I don't have protection for my Stoneforge Mystic. Jitte is good enough to win the game on its own, and I want to tax Charlie's burn spells going after creatures. The other thing that could be happening is Dan has drawn the Batter Skull already, and so he's just getting the Jitte because that's the thing that he can get. Either one is sort of, the first scenario is the more plausible one.
I agree.
That Dan just doesn't have any protection and he's happy enough getting the Jitte because it can go on anything. There is the risk, though, of the Batter Skull being there, and Charlie kind of caught the bad end of it.
Trivia time very quickly, 6-month giveaway. Hashtag your answer, the hashtag of SCG Premium. Make sure you're following at SCG Live. We, of course, will announce the winner at the conclusion of our semifinal round. And do remember that all giveaways here at the sole discretion of Star City Games. Twitch.tv is no way affiliated with our giveaways. Mr. Sullivan,
so
6 months.
Charlie Mitchell, we've been focusing on his burn list quite a bit. And for the most part, it's pretty conventional. Not a lot going on here outside the norm, with the exception of 1 card. There is a 2-mana 1/1 in his sideboard that he used to beat the tar out of Ross Miriam playing Elves earlier in the day, if the rumors on the floor are to be believed. Yes. So name that 2-mana 1/1.
And if you can, hashtag the answer at hashtag SCG Premium. Make sure you're following at SCG Live on Twitter. We'll announce the winner at the conclusion of the semifinal round as we do turn our attention back towards Jordan versus Mitchell. We will take a look at Mitchell's sideboard first. 3 Vexing Shusher, 3 Satyr Fire Dancer, 2 Mindbreak Trap, 4 Red Elemental Blast, and 3 Smash to Smithereens. Actually, a lot of options here.
Well, he will bring in the smashes. I don't know if he wants all 3, but I expect that he does, probably in the sideboard for this matchup. The real question is he wants Red Elemental Blast. Historically, I've only liked this card against basically blue combo decks. Things like High Tide, Omnitel, even Sneak and Show. Using it against honest decks risks that you just don't have enough burn in your hand to finish out the game, and you allow the other deck to get to the mid-game or the late game. Since the blue cards aren't the most threatening ones in Dan's deck for the matchup, it's actually the white cards, most notably Stoneforge Mystic. I would not bring in Red Elemental Blast were I in Charlie's position. That said, there's still a lot of things for him to tag, and so he may bring it in. I think the Fire Dancer is just bringing you more creatures against the deck with Bolts and Plows and True Name Nemesis that you can't even touch with Satyr Fire Dancer, all that stuff. Too many things that can go wrong. I don't like Vexing Shusher in the matchup very much because all of Dan's permission is soft permission, with the exception of Force of Will. And when you play Vexing Shusher, you have to, also kind of preempt in some spots, and then you just walk into Dazes and Spell Pierces anyway. So were I in Charlie's seat, I would just bring in Smash and Smithereens, but it is possible he will go to Red Elemental Blast and or Vexing Shusher.
Other side of things, we're going to see a Sword of Feast and Famine, 2 Grim Lavamancer, 4 Meddling Mage, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Flusterstorm, a Pyroblast, Red Elemental Blast, a Swords of Plowshares, and a Wear and Tear. I expect to see his swords come in. Flusterstorm, I imagine, is basically like a hard counter here.
It's really good. Flusterstorm is a great counter spell. Unlike Spell Pierce and Daze, where you can just kind of make your land drops and play around it. If Dan leaves a couple cantrips in the chamber, he holds a Brainstorm back, he can engineer Flusterstorms to counter for greater than 2 mana. So it's very good in the matchup. I think the Wear Tear is going to come in to fight Eidolon and Sulfuric Vortex, which are 2 annoying cards for Dan to play against. I think the extra Plow is reasonable because even if Charlie has a creature light draw, Dan plowing his own creatures just to gain some life is a reasonable line of play. And the Grim Lavamancers are fine here as well if he just wants extra threads. Lavamancer also contains some stuff in Charlie's deck. It's another card that warrants a removal spell.
Yeah, I imagine that Lavamancers will come in. I mean, I don't think they're going to be the high impact cards that they are in some matches, like against Elves, but they're good enough.
Yeah, they're good. Exactly, good enough. It would be different if Charlie had Searing Bloods in his sideboard alongside Searing Blazes. You don't want to be bringing in small creatures if that sideboard plan is available to the burn player, but Charlie doesn't have any of that, so it's pretty safe to bring in more creatures.
Well, game 2 will be underway here in just a moment, of course. We shall see. Well, this is a fun conversation I've just been told about here. Ben Friedman, good Ben.
40-card Freeman.
40-card Freeman, the Sleeveless Wonder, Season 2 Invitational follow-up. Ben said to Charlie, excuse me, Ben said, "What advice do you have for this kid about 8th grade, Dan?" Dan said, "Talk to every girl you can." Charlie said, "I already do."
Good answer.
Yeah, great answer. Just ahead of the game in every way.
Yep.
In every possible way.
If I was only blessed with that level of wisdom at that age.
Yeah. Well, were you playing Burn at this age already?
No, I wasn't.
Yep.
At 13, if I was playing Magic, I'm not sure if that was right before or right after, I would have been playing, my idea of a combo deck would have been Orchestra, Flame, and Elvish Archers. So I definitely wouldn't have been here, that's for sure. Because it's a 3-1 and it already has first strike, so good luck blocking.
Grim Lava Mance to start things off here for Charlie.
Orchestra, Flame, Ball Lightning was also something I was really into.
Ever heard of it?
Yeah.
Here's a Goblin Guide. We're going to head into the red zone potentially here with both creatures. We are. Daze is the top card. Charlie looking to deal 3 points of damage right now. See if Dan has a lightning bolt here. Maybe a brainstorm. We'll see. Looks like it's going to be a lightning bolt. Get rid of the Lava Mancer. So Goblin Guy can stay around. Charlie will sacrifice the Arid Mesa. Again, we know the top card of Dan's deck is a Daze. The question, of course, now is does he have one in his hand? Because it looks like Mitchell does have some interest in resolving a spell here.
This could be a Flame Rift.
Easy. Only
Or
one.
sorry, Rift Bolt.
There we
Rift
go.
Bolt.
Easy.
Get those all mixed up.
I know, 2 damage, deal 8. You get a little antsy. There's a Rift Bolt.
Daze and or Spell Pierce this.
Well, there's a Jite. Now a Stoneforge. That's good news. Rift Bolt going upstairs. Jordan going to go down to 15. Mitchell will draw. Another copy of Goblin Guy. That's not bad.
Not shabby here. This seems like a good spot to deploy the Shusher that's in his hand, though.
In for 2. Volcanic Island going to hand. There's also an Eidolon over there, but again, only 2 lands, so there's a Daze. There is the Shusher. Yeah.
He yelled it out there. He gave Dan the, hey, you want to counter this move? Charlie, you are wise beyond your years.
Here is a Stoneforge Mystic. No search. Pass the turn back. Take a draw. Land here would be really nice. Oh boy, a Searing Blaze. But no land for landfall. So now it's Goblin Guide. And now it's everybody coming in. Triggers. Source of Plowshares is pretty good. Jordan have a Bolt.
Seems like a needless risk to take the damage here.
You think Dan should block or no?
What's up?
Are you saying Dan should block?
Oh, if he had a Bolt in hand, he's got to kill one of those.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay. There's 4th land, Delta.
Because things aren't quite stable yet. If he equips the Jite and attacks, that's only 4 life that he gains. Charlie has 6 on the way back.
Yep.
And the Batter Skull, of course, is on something of a turn delay, so.
There's a land. So now landfall's on. Yep, so here's this. Everybody's coming in. Trigger Wasteland. Trigger Force of Will. Can he get through these last points of damage?
Does he have the Smash and Smithereens is the question.
Yep, that would be huge right now. So there's Batterskull. Now I'm trying to figure out if we can work our way through this.
If the only thing that he's got going on here is Searing Blaze, that's not going to cut it. The problem, of course, just being, you know, even if he blocks and trades, et cetera, the Batter Skull and the Jite just get moved on the Stoneforge Mystic, and that'll wrap her up.
Yep. There's Searing Blaze. Yep, so 3 and 3.
If we were only playing with the old lifelink rules.
Is this a Bolt, maybe? This is actually kind of interesting. Spell Pierce, make it uncounterable. Yep, there's a Daze, making it uncounterable on the stack. So now Searing Blaze is going to get countered. Easy, Dan's going to explain that, exactly how it's going to work. Yeah, and this is a beating now.
Yeah, and this is the issue that I have with Shuster in the matchup. This kind of stuff happens a lot.
Yeah. Ends up being a huge beating. If there was ever a time that Mitchell could have slid in the Eidolon, this game is wildly different. I mean, Jordan probably ends up taking 6 points of damage from the card, but he just could not get it in. There's a Wasteland, and the coast is pretty clear to equip the Batter Skull. Come in here for 4 points of damage. Jordan going to go up to 11. 2 GT counters going to put him up to a virtual 15, and there's probably no coming back now.
Charlie, you've had a great run.
George just going to pass the turn back. It's a really good draw here from Charlie this game, too. I thought he was actually going to win this one. Just didn't have the land on time, I think, for the Searing Blaze is the problem.
Yeah. Also depends what you remove from his deck for the Vexing Shushers, too.
Yeah, there's Eidolon. That's a little late to the party, though. Gonna suspend the Rift Bolt. No good attacks, obviously. Pass the turn back.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I will take it, and you can gain it. He's going to deal 4. Looks like he's going to pump. Deal 6.
And now Dan can even just strand the Eidolon in play because it's going to be more prohibitive for Charlie than for Dan.
I think that's exactly what you're doing, too. That's why you see the double pump. It's going to be 8 points of damage. Dan's going to gain 8, go up to 19. Mitchell going to go down to 7. And what has been a fantastic run here for Charlie. Looks like it's going to come to a close. Rift Bolt's going to be able to fire away. He'll have to take 2 from his own Eidolon and go down to 5. Jordan's going to go down a little lower to 16. Take a draw here. Because even a card right now like Smash the Smithereens doesn't even get him out of the situation.
Yeah.
There were some draws that could have been on time to get him out of this one, but looks like he didn't find him, and I think he's come to that realization. He's going to extend the hand. Dan Jordan's going to win this match over Charlie Mitchell 2-0, and Blue White Red Delver is moving on to the finals.
Dan, I mean, the matchup's favorable for Blue White Red Delver, don't get me wrong, but Dan had the draws that he needed, that's for sure. Very hard to beat Jite early on in the game. Naturally drew the Batter Skull, which was helpful for him, certainly in that first game. That first game was the really interesting one because Dan we know got the Jite because that's the only equipment that he got, but that he could get because he already had the Batter Skull. But the scenario is so good for him to induce Charlie to kill something other than the Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure Charlie can win that game if he kills the Stoneforge instead of the Insectile Aberration, but he has a much better shot.
Yeah, that game is really interesting, actually, if he does just kill the Stoneforge Mystic and we just kind of proceed forward. I think it's a really interesting game. And I think the game is already interesting enough because, again, there's a real opportunity for Dan to just search for GTA and not Batter Skull in that spot.
Yeah, it's really easy to imagine, you know. If Dan has no protection for the Stoneforge Mystic, it makes a lot of sense for him to go get the Jite. Then the Searing Blaze doesn't get contested. So that sort of the story being told by Dan here of, I don't have Force of Will or really any way to protect my creatures. I'm going to get a Jite because I know I can cast it. And because even if you kill my Stoneforge Mystic, I can put it on my Insectile Aberration. It forces another burn spell. The story that Dan is telling there lines up with